Explain the purpose of the Green Grid initiative launched at World Leaders Summit of Conference of Parties 26 UNFCCC Glasgow in November 2021. When was the idea first floated in ISA? Answer in 150 words. So you guys are unmuted. Please feel free, participate in the discussion. That's how my classes go. So I want any one of you to take this initiative and unmute yourself and try to solve this question along with me. So if you do not know anything, but feel free, feel confident. That's how you're going to learn. So who will decode the question? I'm not expecting any answer from a particular person. What do you understand by the question itself? Or how are you going to approach the answer? What should be your answer structure? Anyone, please raise your hands. Come on. Stanzin, don't type, unmute yourself.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
I don't know that much, but it basically means sustainable energy.
Yeah. No, so this sustainable, the question is not on sustainable energy. It is tangential to that. The question is very specific. It is, so when you read the question, explain the purpose of GGI. So the main demand of the question, what do you think? What should be the main demand of the question? Anyone? You don't know, you don't have to know the answer, but this is pure English. You are attending the classes in English. So, sir, I won't be able to speak since I'm sitting in a library. I will type in chat box. Okay. Then type. No problem.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Can I attempt?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when they mean purpose, they basically are seeking to understand what is the reason and what is the goal.
Yeah. So let's say you are don't mute yourself. Let's say you started to write an answer. So we will come to introduction later on. But when I'm looking at your answer copy, or when an examiner is looking at your answer copy, what is the keyword she would want to see in your body part?
So the objective.
But now what you're doing, you have addressed the main demand of the question correctly, but instead of using directly taking keywords from the question, you are tweaking it. So if the question demands the purpose of GGI, objective would be fine, but why not directly use those same words which have been used in the question, so that examiner directly knows where you have addressed the main demand of the question. Although objective and purpose are absolutely fine, interchangeable words in this particular case. So instead of that, you should directly write purpose of GGI. I will explain everything related to GGI, but first I want to make you understand that even if you do not understand the concept, if you do not have any information about anything, but still make it a habit of constructing the answer structure. Because oftentimes we have seen that students know everything, but they are not able to convert that immense knowledge into a well-structured answer. All right. So you will explain purpose of GGI, purpose 1, purpose 2, purpose 3, purpose 4. And then you will come to the next demand of the question, which is when was this idea first floated? Then you will talk about the first floating of the idea. And then you will end with a conclusion. Is this okay? Okay. So now coming to GGI, or in other words, known as one sun, one world, one grid. You see, India has committed 175 gigawatt of renewable energy to UNFCCC under Paris Climate Deal as a #1 action which Government of India is taking as far as climate is concerned. Now, when it comes to renewable energy, we have to bank upon two main sources of renewable energy. One is solar and another one is wind. So all of you who have gone through mains QIP might find this discussion redundant, but since the question has come, we have to discuss everything. Now with the solar energy, the problem is that since we do not have the storage facility or the batteries at the grid level, whatever solar energy you harness during the day when the sun is up, you have to use it immediately. Because there is no sun at the night, it is limited to the day, during the day, since you do not have storage facility. Even when it is available during the day, it is not available throughout the year. For example, right now in Delhi, there is no sun since 2 days. There was no sun for 25 days. So the seasonality of solar energy and the limitation of not being able to harness this immense renewable energy resource during the night time has led to a lot of problems. For example, let's say Vinayak has 1,000 crore rupees in his account and he is not just a businessman. At the same time, he is socially aware businessman, does not want to pollute. So he decides to invest in solar power plant. Indian government has made the target, let's say, of 100 gigawatt of production of solar energy. Now, we are already reaching that capacity of 100 gigawatt. But our demand for solar energy, our demand for overall energy is around 400 gigawatt. But still, we are not investing more. Why? Because Vinayak will think that I am investing so much into the solar energy. First of all, when India consumes electricity at night time, no one will buy it from me because I will not be able to produce. And for 60 days and a year, there is no production from my plant. Is this point correct? At the same time, what government is thinking, that why to incentivize solar energy so much when solar energy can never become the base supply. Now, what is the base supply of electricity? The base supply of electricity is nuclear power plant, coal power plant, which are independent of the surroundings. You kickstart a project, if it is constructed, if you supply coal, there is no other factor which hinders its production. And they can produce electricity at a constant rate for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Nuclear energy, once the uranium rod is inside, the nuclear reaction is on, you can produce the constant amount of electricity for 25 years unless the radioactivity depletes to significantly lower levels. But if we are looking for a future where most of our energy will be derived from solar and wind, they have to be the base supplier. But right now, what they are is not base supplier. What they do is that that electricity demand fluctuates with seasons. So for example, during Diwali time in India, there would be very high demand of electricity. It drops to very low level during winter seasons. It shoots up to very high level. So for example, in Delhi, the summer demand is around 7 gigawatt, whereas winter demand is only 2 gigawatts. So what we do is that we calculate the minimum amount of electricity needed throughout the year that is supplied always by nuclear and coal in our case, because 54% of the production is done by coal. And the fluctuation is met with solar and wind energy. But if we want to make an opposite case, what do we do? What options do we have? And so India and UK came up with this idea of one sun, one world, one grid, where they said, it's okay if there is a night time in India, but during the same time, Africa is observing the afternoon. Right? So let me, so this is my QIP class. So what basically the idea is that if there's night time in India, India cannot produce solar energy, but Africa can produce solar energy even at that point of time. If somehow we connect the African grid with Indian grid, that is why Green Grid Initiative, one sun, one world, one grid. Because you have one sun and the world, if it is interconnected, it becomes one grid. So during the night time, Indian power plants cannot produce solar energy, but African solar power plants can produce energy. Is this point clear? So if we connect the grids of Asian subcontinent, Asian continent with the African continents, what you can have now is Vinayak will be able to invest in India, because now he will think that his solar power plant during the day will supply electricity to India, and when there is a night time in Africa, then also you will be able to produce and supply electricity. Is this point clear? So now what it solves two problems. First of all, it allows the renewable energy to become the base energy source. Because now you can reduce your dependence on coal if your grid is interconnected, because during the night time, if the electricity is not coming from Rajasthan, it will definitely come from Sudan. And then when the sun moves further, there is night in Sudan, then in Morocco, from Morocco. So you've, instead of harnessing 8 to 9 hours of solar energy, what you would have is harnessing of 18 hours of electricity every day. Is this point clear? All right. So this is the purpose of one sun, one world, one grid. So as far as, so the purpose is 3 to 4-fold. The first purpose is to harness the global solar energy. Then the second purpose is, yes, Prateek?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Sir, my doubt is like, won't there be transmission losses? Because
definitely there would be transmission losses, and hence one of the purposes is also to install very advanced, so you will have to revamp the whole system. So the current system of the current transmission instruments which we are using right now would not be sufficient, and there are other challenges also which we'll understand. You're absolutely right. Hence, one of the purpose of Green Grid initiative is to revamp the whole transmission infrastructure. So that is why you will need a lot of investment. And so UK came along with India. So India proposed this model. So India named it One Sun, One World, One Grid. UK named it Green Grid Initiative. So it is GGIOSOWOG, because both are the part. Just like in International Solar Alliance, India and France are partners. All of us know that. In this initiative, India and UK are partners. UK will carry the major amount of funding, whereas India will focus more on the implementation part, because India is the largest solar producer in this part of the world. So after China, India is the next largest producer in Asia. Also, because India is a tropical country, it has immense amount of half of the India lies beneath the Tropic of Cancer, where you know that sun is 365 days in a year. Okay. So is the concept clear to everyone? Why India and UK have come up with this initiative? Okay. But the problem is that not everything is so rosy about this particular project. And you would understand why. So for example, if let me draw a world map. Let's say this is India, then going back this, let's say Africa. Now you see any physical connectivity. So unlike internet cables, which can be subsurface, which can go underneath the sun, underneath the ocean, undersea cables, electricity has to be carried out on ground. And so any connectivity of India with either the Middle East or African country involves passage through Pakistan. Point clear? You got the answer? I think you understood the point. Number one challenge which this project is going to face is that of geopolitics. And it's just not India and Pakistan. You would have to carry the same grid from Saudi Arabia, which will have to pass through Iran. And these are just the major conflicts in this part of the world. Forget about Africa, where the national capital do not hold control over complete territory. For example, Nigeria, there is a big civil war going on there. Similarly, in Sudan, talk about Yemen, where Houthi militias are fighting Houthi rebels are fighting the ruling dispensation. So as we move away from India, the political stability is quickly lost. And so the crucial question which the people who are apprehensive about the project have asked, that the idea is very good, but when you look into the ground implementation, which industrialist, Vinayak is not going to invest 1,000 crore on a transmission line which passes through Somalia, or for that matter, South Sudan, because there is no legal order and peace in those regions. And so you're talking about creating transmission lines of 4,000, 5,000 kilometers. Who will guarantee the safety of these pipelines? So that is electricity lines. So this is geopolitics. Then one of the major issues which this project faces, another one is, I think some of you might have friends and relatives in US, and we have this tendency of, asking them to bring some gadgets from there. So for example, some of you might have gotten laptops, mobile phones from US or US system. You have noticed that the charger or the plug which comes is very different, has a very different dimension, voltage, electricity as compared to India, because each and every country has their own standards of electricity transmission. And when you connect the grids, you have to make sure that there is a uniformity of standards. If there is no uniformity of standards of how electricity is being transmitted, it would not be able to transmit across, let's say, 30 countries. So you can see that the idea, when we talk about it, looks very cool. It has a lot of potential, but before it gets to the ground, before it's started, there is a lot of not just legal but also geopolitical battle which has to be fought out. There are a lot of issues which have to be sorted. So your introduction, now you have understood the concept, now you have understood everything. Can you tell me the answer now? Any one of you? Anyone? Please unmute yourself. Okay, so I mean, basically body part is clear. What purposes it has? It has purpose to transition. The larger purpose is to transition completely on renewable energy resource to meet the target of net zero emission by 2050 and 2070 by India. Then investment into solar energy. Then creation of clean transmission grid, connection of creation of grid which are interconnected. And then when it comes to conclusion, either you can appreciate the project, that this is a very nice idea, or you can talk about the challenges which have to be resolved before it becomes a success. And in my case, I have written the second part, because what I think is that the people who are getting selected through this examination are going to be policymakers. And a better policymaker, in my view, is one who is able to think of all the dimensions quickly. And so, for example, if you are made the power secretary, for example, some of you will definitely become. And so power secretary on one hand has the task of meeting India's power demand and keeping pace with that. But you also know that approval of a new hydro plant will lead to submergence of a lot of areas, will displace a lot of tribals or normal villagers from submerged lands, will lead to decimation of biodiversity from that particular area. So a good power secretary has to balance two conflicting goals of the society. And similarly, in the conclusion, if you write that the project in its conception is extremely nice, but it will have to solve the issues of geopolitics, creation of uniform transmission, like, can we analyze critically both sides of the conclusion? Definitely. That's what I'm saying. You are not saying that this project is useless. You're not saying that. You're saying that this project is very good. That's how I started. This idea, this conception of this idea is extremely well paced, but it will have to resolve the issues of geopolitics, disparate transmission standards, and the cost sharing model. Because when you are going to invest in so many countries, you will have to decide what. So for example, when the government runs the centrally sponsored schemes, some of the components come from the states as well. So similarly, if India and UK are going to invest in an African country, some of the ownership will have to be on behalf of these African countries. Okay. So when it comes to this particular question, Green Grid Initiative is India's initiative to build global ecosystem of interconnected renewable energy resources. Its motto is sun never sets. And that is what you have to harness, because sun really never sets on the surface of the earth. And if all the countries across the world are connected with each other, you can completely rely on solar energy. There is no need for any other source of energy. Now, this is the important line which I want to talk about, which I particularly call as connector or a bridge. Because oftentimes what students do is that they write an introduction which could be relevant, but you know that the main demand of the question has to be addressed in the body part. Is it not? When the main demand of the question has to be addressed in the body part, you cannot abruptly move from introduction to the body part like that. You have to use a connector. So since the main part of the question is the purpose, you have to talk about why it was thought. So variability and intermittency of renewable energy. In 2 words, this connector describes the problem with the solar energy. Variability, because if there is cloud, you cannot produce electricity from solar energy. Intermittency, because you cannot produce it during the night time. So you started by talking about the green grid initiative in the introduction. You talked about the problem with the solar energy, which solar energy currently faces, and then you quickly moved on to the purpose of the program. Then it looks like a sequential order. Is this point clear? And so you will talk about investing in solar, wind storage, long distance cross border transmission lines, modernizing power systems. So this was the question which was asked by you, because it also has a component so far of modernizing the power system, realizing the fact very well that transporting electricity for such long distances would definitely lead to a lot of losses, supporting the global transition to zero emission. Perfect. And so the second part of the question was, when was this idea floated? So this idea was first floated in 2018 by Indian Prime Minister. We have talked about it. And then finally, conclusion. This is what I said. However, the project will need to resolve issues related to cost sharing among various countries, geopolitics, India, Pakistan, Saudi, Iran, and multiple jurisdictions, leading to disparate standards.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
If we don't know about the exact date, like I know about when our Prime Minister launched it, but I'm not sure about the date. So should we skip it?
Yeah, so definitely. So this is one thing which you should make up your mind about. I have seen a lot of students beating around the bush, even if they do not know directly the answer. So let's say there are a lot of different cases. That is something you will figure out while writing the mains test series. If you do not know anything about a particular question, do not attempt it. And there are 2 reasons for it. The first reason is that if you are writing something which is not related to the actual question, the examiner will immediately understand that you are trying to fool him or her. Bad impression created, which will then compromise on your future marks in that particular paper. Number 1. Is this point clear? Pratik, are you listening?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The second reason is that if you look into the mains paper so far in past 5 to 7 years, except barring 2013 and 14, the question paper is divided into 2 parts. Part 1 has 10 markers and part 2 has 15 markers. Both these have to be attempted. 20 questions have to be attempted in 180 minutes, 3 hours. 180 minutes. If you are allocating 7 minutes to each of these 10 markers, you will consume 7 minutes. If you are allocating 11 minutes to each these 10 questions, it will take 110 minutes. In total, 180. So you can see that by trying to unnecessarily write something on a question you don't know, you are taking away 7 to 8 minutes of your precious time. So instead of that, you can invest that time. If you do not know, let's say 1 or 2 questions, don't worry about it. Write 18 questions in a good manner. So that provides you extra time to write those 18 questions, which can then be beautifully written in a calm and a peace manner, providing you extra time. Is this one clear? Pratik, I hope this answers your query. Okay. Let's now look into the next question. So this is when we talk about the coverage, this is the QIP revision classes, mains QIP revision classes, where I talked about the ones, and so we can see benefits or the purpose, access to the clean energy, investment in India's leadership position. Then the challenges which I talked about was also discussed. Then we also discussed a mains question on this topic. One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative has the potential to radically alter the energy landscape across the world, but it is not without its challenges discussed. So we discuss One Sun Green Grid initiative, everything. And then in the solar energy, so this was in reference to a discussion where we discussed in one class all the sources of energy, their merits and their demerits. So this was under the subsection of solar energy. So this was the first discussion where we discussed all the dimensions of solar energy. What are the challenges? What are the benefits? What is the current status? What are different kinds of solar energy, off grid, on grid? And so after that, we discussed the one sun, one world. Let's now move on to the next question. Describe the key points